Hello and welcome to the British Sitcom History Podcast. I'm Gareth, and with me as always this week is Alan.
Hello, I'm happy to help.
So as you will know, because you are not stupid, you will have read that we are covering Trollied this week. And this is a really interesting one because it kind of came up a few times when we were reviewing other sitcoms and we'd see actors and, oh yeah, he was in a series of Trollied. Oh yeah, she was in Trollied. And it was one of those programs that I'd not really heard of until it kept coming up over and over and again. So I went away and watched a couple of episodes of this because I was curious. And, you know, I'm going to tip my hand here. I really liked it. So much so that I harassed you into covering it, right?
You lobbied for Trollied. Yeah, I think it's one of those, it's the Sky One conundrum, isn't it?
The Sky problem, yes.
If it's not on real telly, we don't necessarily...
So it's a well-staffed sitcom, good writers, good cast. It's well-funded. We'll talk about the set later. But yet... because it was on Sky, it just sort of went under my radar, certainly.
Yeah, I agree. This is started in 2011, so that just to give you some sense of context. But the Sky thing, I never had Sky or anything like that. If it's not on BBC or Channel 4, I probably don't know it. That also does translate to viewing figures in general. This show had viewers in the region of like 500,000, 600,000.
They would sort of get up towards 1 million quite regularly, which I think Sky regard that as a success. You know, that's good numbers for their advertisers.
I mean, this ran for 7 years, so it must have been a success.
It kept getting recommissioned. You know, It wasn't one of these like a footballer who gets a 7-year contract out the gate. You know, they renewed it series by series.
Yeah, and so I don't know the murky world of the Sky's budgeting, but I feel like if you were getting those numbers on BBC, you would not get a third series.
No, that's certainly true. But I think, as I said, that the measures of success are different. The metrics are different.
Yeah, but having said that, I think this is a sitcom that's had quite a lineage because it's got a huge cast. There's lots of actors in here that go, oh yeah, I've seen them in that. I've seen them in this.
Yeah,
it was filmed in Bristol, but it's set in Warrington, and it's kind of a northern-based sitcom, and therefore we have northern-based actors, and so you start to see that crossover with other shows like Early Doors, for example, that kind of thing.
Yes.
And so it's got a kind of outside of London vibe to it, which is kind of what the BBC are trying to do more of, and I've never quite got a handle on it.
Well, it's interesting. The showrunner who was the main writer and the showrunner is Anne-Marie O'Connor, who is from Yorkshire. She's from Bradford, actually. And apparently the original intention, the original proposal would be a supermarket based in Bradford. But actually, I think that if we go back to the inception of the sitcom, the name that jumped out to me was Ash Atala, who listeners will probably know that name, but he was the producer of The Office and has worked with Ricky Gervais on a lot of things. So he was kind of the person who had the credibility, if you like, and that his production company, Rough Cut Productions, were the proposers of Trollied. They took it to Sky.
Do you know what? I just want to pick you up on something there, because I thought the same thing. I thought, Ash Atala, yeah, obviously The Office, that's kind of the headline there. I did all the stuff with Ricky Gervais. But when I looked him up, he hasn't really done anything else with Ricky Gervais. I was sort of expecting to see, extras and maybe Life's Too Short, all that kind of stuff, but it's not. He seemed to take his Office success and went off and did other things. Yeah,
well, I guess Ricky Gervais doesn't need a producer, does he?
He could do with a co-director and co-writer these days.
Maybe.
But and Ash Atala went on from the Office success, and he became the head of comedy at Talkback Thames. So he was sort of in the production seat for a lot of shows like the IT Crowd, things like that. And then he started his own production company, which is Rough Cut TV. That's the company that made Trollied, and is still going now and is very successful as far as little, relatively small independent production companies go. They do a lot of stuff, some real successes. In terms of sitcom-y stuff, they did Cuckoo.
Greg Davis.
People Just Do Nothing, they did that. Staff Lets Flats.
Right, okay.
They were behind that one. More recently, we talked about this just recently, We Might Regret This, which, because Darren Boyd is one of the lead characters,
yes,
Sally Phillips turns up in it. That's just a really recent one they've just done.
Well, Ashatala was probably the name that got them through the door at Sky. But as I said before, the creative force behind it are two writers, Anne-Marie O'Connor and Paul Doolan. Mm-hmm. And Anne-Marie O'Connor, as I say, she's the showrunner. And she had come from, she was writing on Waterloo Road. Do you know Waterloo Road? It's come up a lot in my research.
Only vague. I haven't watched it in any meaningful way.
I've never watched it either. Yeah. It's not a sitcom, it's a drama. It's based in a comprehensive school in Birmingham. Yeah. So it just makes me think Grange Hill, but I can't I can't really speak to how similar or different it is to Grange Hill. I think it's probably more focused on the staff than the kids.
It's a bit more adult, yeah.
What I found really interesting about Anne-Marie O'Connor is that she was a ghostwriter. So she'd written some plays, but she's earned her money ghostwriting. Oh. So if I tell you here's 3 books that she wrote, which are ostensibly by someone else. Yeah. Can you see if you can guess who they're by? So this is Tough Love in 2007, The Footballer's Wife 2008. And Glamour Girl, also 2008. Who do you think wrote those books?
It's, well, obviously a wag. I want to say Colleen Rooney.
It's a good guess.
But because I'm trying to think of Rebecca Vardy.
They're the only two you know, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're backing up slightly up the wrong tree. Those were books written by Kerry Katona.
Ah.
Well, I think, I think there's probably a good living in that. I follow cycling, which is a completely different branch, but I know a lot of cycling journalists who make a lot of money pretending to be Geraint Thomas or Mark Cavendish and writing their books for them. So I think there's good money in that. But I suppose it's the same principle writing a chick lit type novel for Kerry Katona or Katie Price.
You can just churn it out, can't you? You don't have to put too much effort in. Yeah. So, right.
But anyway, so she'd come to television with Waterloo Road, and Trollied was obviously her idea. So she'd come to Ashatala with this proposal, and they went to Sky with it.
That's interesting, yeah. Because Ashatala, basically the 3 people who are credited as the creators of the show, it's Ashatala, Anne-Marie O'Connor, and Paul Doolan. But Ashatala is not a writer, he is not. I think he's credited as a writer on 1 episode. But he obviously wasn't on the writing staff. He was the producer, and he's helped shepherd it in. So he's got that creator credit. So Anne-Marie O'Connor is obviously a big name, and Paul Doolan is credited writer on a significant number of the episodes.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so those guys were the main creative forces behind it, but there was certainly a writer's room. And, we've talked about this before, the British versus the American style of writing. But Trollied, after the first series, which had 8 episodes, they then commissioned 2 series of 13. So the series 2 and 3 both had 13 episodes. So there was a lot of material to be written. And so, yeah, they employed a writer's room.
Yeah. Richard Herring can attest to this issue.
Yeah.
Sky.
Well, we've talked about Time, Gentlemen, Please a lot, which kind of bucks the trend, where it's just one person churning out loads and loads of material.
Yeah.
But again, I think if you've got a little bit... The reason for this is that American sitcoms are just, better funded. They can afford a writer's room. But so again, I think that speaks to... There must have been some money behind Trollied.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the writer's room mentality, and obviously I'm a bit of a British sitcom purist, so my preference is to 2 blokes sat in a room with a typewriter kind of vibe, bouncing off each other. But the writer's room style, it can generate a lot of ideas, and it can certainly thicken up things. You'll see on Trollied, basically it's usually 1 credited writer and then about 5 or 6 additional material writers. So obviously they come up with ideas, someone goes away and writes it, and then everyone else kind of paws over it and goes, here's a better line for this word, here's a better one for this. And I think that's a great way of kind of boosting your scripts.
So how do you think that affects the product then? Because, we've talked before about the auteur style of writing and producing.
I think for me, personally, watching Trollied, it's missing that voice. It's missing a personality.
Yeah, I think so.
That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think a show can still work. I think a show like this, which is a real ensemble piece, there's a lot of characters and at times can get a little bit soapy. I think that can work because you're not focusing on like 1 or 2 characters that you can have a real personality behind and have that auteur
I think
feel.
Soapy is a good word. I was going to use that word. And so I want to draw a comparison here. We've talked before about Heidi High and Allo Allo and how they suffer because you have to have every single character doing their shtick.
Yes.
I didn't really feel that in Trollied, but I'm not sure why, because they do. They do make sure that we touch on every character. And I think it feels more like a soap opera than like one of those old comedies.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm not saying it's not funny, but it's got the beats of a soap opera. We sort of go around every group and we figure out what they're doing. And they might have a small B plot, but it just feels like we're eavesdropping on their lives in the manner of a soap opera.
I think there is a difference if you look at the David Croft style sitcoms where there is a large ensemble and we have to touch on every character. In that, soaps and Trollied, they're not worried about having everyone involved in the same plot or even having an A plot and a B plot. Everyone's doing their own thing. And in soaps, you go on the Queen Vic, something's happening there. Then you go over to the CAF and something's happening there. They're all kind of interconnected, but they're separate. And I think that's what we get in Trollied.
I think to give you a good example of that, you've got Sue and Linda on the customer service desk, who, certainly for the first 2 or 3 series, they have no interaction with anyone else at all. They're
Pretty much, yeah.
It's just like we go over to them for their little sketch and then we come back, you know.
Good word. I think the first few series are sketchy. And then it becomes more soapy as they... I think Trollied is a show that finds its feet as it goes along.
Yeah.
By the end of the run, 7 years in, I actually think it really knows what it is. And it works very well. I found the first series, a little bit sketchy. It's a little bit, okay, let's go over to these characters for a gag. And it's not quite sketchy. It's not quite there. But it's loose. But that's not quite soap territory because you're not developing the characters as much. So Sue and Linda on the reception desk, they're never really developed in those first couple of series. And then we do get more from them a bit later on. The best example, I think, are Colin and Lisa, who are 2 characters who come together kind of in the early series. That gives them a bit of meat to work with in terms of kind of developing a relationship.
They're very much, certainly in the first series, they're caricatures. You know, they're slobs, lazy, quite oversexed. But they're caricatures. They're not real people. And we do exactly that. We just sort of see them in passing for the first series. But absolutely. Their characters grow. And by the end of the 7th series, they're integral to the cast.
They are a crucial part of the whole thing.
Well, but I think this illustrates an interesting point. And again, I think it's quite soapy. That through the 7 series, characters come and go. And we're going to be looking at an episode from the 2nd series, which is the 1 millionth customer. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the cast and the characters from the first 2 or 3 series. Because after that, there are a lot of cast changes. So we will touch on that towards the end. But we want to focus on the main cast and characters from the first 2 or 3 series.
Yeah, series 3 to 4 was a big change. But just to get into... this episode particularly is an interesting one. It's the last episode of series 2, if you don't include the Christmas special. So it's the 13th episode of series 2. Now, another thing they did, particularly early on, series 2 and series 3, they have these overarching series narratives.
Yes.
And in series 2, it was a new manager.
Yeah, so Gavin, the branch manager, gets promoted to area manager, and we bring in a replacement who's played by, she's not in this episode, but played marvellously by Stephanie Beecham.
Yes, and I'm just setting that up now because that's an overarching series narrative, but it gets wrapped up in like episode 10. So then there's an extra couple of episodes that like, they're not quite sure what to do now. And this is one of them. This is like the last episode of the series, and it's wrapping up a few things, but also it's not got this narrative that they've been leaning on.
Well, this is why this is why I picked this episode, because it's got our main cast in it, but it's not. It's a standalone episode.
That was and also interesting for logistic purposes. I've been watching this show over the course of about 3 months. Right, we've been watching them all. It's got a lot of episodes, and so I just ready for this record went back and rewatched this episode, and it's been long enough that I couldn't really remember the context of kind of what was happening. And so as we'll get into, like, for example, Andy, Mark Addy's character, he's leaving and all this stuff. And it was these elements that were like, I can't remember why this is happening. I'm not sure what's going on. And so there are definitely some narrative elements here that if you just dropped in and goes, oh, look, a Trollied, I'm going to watch an episode of Trollied. There are narrative elements here that you need. So it's not an episodic sitcom in that sense.
Yeah.
However, there is very much a thing that is happening in this episode that is not relevant to everything else. Do you know what I mean?
Shall we jump into our episode then, and then we can jump off as we normally do? So, the 1 millionth customer, and you can draw your own conclusions from that description. It's Valco's millionth customer. Although, of course, it's not the millionth customer; it's the millionth since the new till software, which I liked. But they're getting ready to celebrate their millionth customer. That's the setup for the episode.
Yes, and it's pretty typical stuff. We've got Gavin Strong, the manager of the store. Gavin's energy is like, he's very devoted to his job. He takes it very seriously. He's a sort of a quiet, boring little man, but he's extremely lovable.
He's very genuine, is what he is. He's authentic. Yeah. He loves working for that supermarket.
Yeah, because he's, in a lot of ways, he's very officious and he's a company man. And, that's not something I would particularly be drawn to, personally. But he's also, like, you're right. He cares. He cares at the store as well. But what's more important than that is that he cares about his staff. And he will put his staff above, not necessarily above Valco, necessarily, but he will take his staff into account and looks after people who are struggling. He's not ruthless. He's not bloody-minded. He's just trying to do the best for everyone around him.
But he is Valco through and through. Cut him and he'll bleed green, you know?
Yes.
But he is really... I mean, I would love to work for him. He seems like a nice guy to work for, genuine.
He is a lovely, lovely man. And basically, my observation of watching the whole show right through 7 series is that this slowly develops into the Gavin Strong show. He very much becomes the beating heart of the show. Not just because a lot of other characters leave, but he's the one that carries a lot of the emotional weight when we have storylines that have any kind of weight to them at all. I think that's a good thing. I think it helps to center the show so it doesn't feel too soapy. And I think Jason Watkins is fantastic generally, but also as this character, he's brilliant. And I think they see that. I think, like I say, I think this show develops as over time. They see what's working and they hone in on it.
Well, it's funny because when all those cast changes started happening, I was very surprised that Jason Watkins didn't leave because he's such a great actor and very famous actor, and I kind of thought, this was about 10 or 15 years ago, he probably moved on to better things, but he didn't. He kept coming back. Like when he got promoted to area manager, I thought, fair enough, we're not going to be seeing much of him anymore. But no, he comes back. So I was completely wrong about that. He is the beating heart, and I suppose he's an avatar for the shop. Valco, the supermarket, is, we don't really have any scenes outside the supermarket. There's the entire drama is in that place. And he is that place. He personifies it.
He literally lives there occasionally when he's fallen out with his girlfriend or whatever it is. Yeah, so Jason Watkins. Now I very recently, we're going to be talking about this soon actually, but he popped up in the BBC's remake of Are You Being Served?
He did, Mr. Humphreys.
As Mr. Humphreys, yeah. And he often plays quite camp. He does sort of play that. Yeah. But that's what I've seen him in recently, because we did Are You Being Served? But I feel like Jason Watkins recently has become a really kind of strong, well-respected kind of actor. But perhaps, when Trollied was around, he was a little supporting actor, comedy guy.
Yes and no. I agree with you. I think he's a brilliant actor, a really good, serious actor. But he's quite clearly got comedy chops. He's a BAFTA-winning actor. He won the BAFTA for that drama about Christopher Jeffries. He was the guy who was accused of murder and he was dragged through the press, and it turned out he was just a bit of a weird bloke. You remember that?
Yes.
So that was Jason Watkins. That was when he sort of reached fame as he's a classic. He's a great actor, and like I say, he won the BAFTA for it. But that was in 2014. That was halfway through Trollied. So it wasn't after Trollied. He was already exercising those serious acting chops and still turning out in Trollied.
I mean, look, we sort of say things quite glibly. Obviously, he's been working for 30 years and he's probably played every type of part you can play. And I'm sure he's done a lot of stage work and all that. But yeah, in terms of like what is his public perception, I suppose, I think of him as a comedy actor.
That's interesting. He took the route through, did drama at school, got into RADA, and that kind of opened up a new world for him. His parents are GPs, so it's not like he came from poverty, but he was from Wolverhampton. And he was dyslexic as well, or is dyslexic, so wasn't very good at school. And that classic story, found drama, and that opened up the world to him. He actually apparently was quite good at football as well, so he sort of made a choice: football or drama. He had a few trials, as they say, but he opted for drama instead.
That's interesting. He is quite, even in character, he's expressed as a very kind of fit and healthy guy. He does a lot of cycling.
Exactly, yeah. You've seen him in Lycra a few times. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's like, that's a classic comedy thing. Put someone in Lycra.
I mean, it is funny. I said this as a cyclist who wears Lycra. It still makes me laugh. But he was in RADA, he was in the same year as Jane Horrocks, who we'll talk about next. But also, they were both in RADA the same year as Ralph Fiennes, which is quite interesting. Because they just feel like a completely different world, don't they?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Well, from RADA, eventually, you're right, he did do a lot of theatre. And he did loads of telly. If you look on his IMDb page, there's just like one episode of this and that. And both sitcoms and dramas as well. He was in 11 episodes of EastEnders back in the 80s. Played a friend of Wilmot Brown, if that means anything to you. There's also, he had a tragedy in his life. He and his wife lost their daughter at the age of 2 in 2011 to sepsis, which is awful. But he sort of credits that. He does a lot of work for a charity in that area, but he credits that with giving him a new drive. So he was kind of bimbling along doing bits of this, bits of that, and that obviously after getting over the initial grief, he sort of got a bit more serious about his career, started to get a bit more focused, and actually that coincides with that move into those more serious dramatic roles.
Well, it's 2011. That's when Trollied starts. Interesting. Well, interestingly, what I kind of forgotten by watching all the episodes, when I went back to some early episodes, Gavin Strong's backstory is that his wife has died, and he's kind of now slightly lost in his personal life, and so he's putting himself into his work, and it's never dig that deep into it, but it's a character who's dealing with loss in his own life. That's interesting context.
Something that you may not know, and I didn't know, but that he's very famous for is he's in Nativity. He's in the Christmas film Nativity.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one of those things that people watch every year. I've never seen it, but I think that's something that a certain generation of people would know him for.
There's quite a few Nativity films. I wouldn't mind doing something on one of those at some point, because there's so many comedy actors.
There's a lot of sitcom connections. Finally, just in terms of sitcoms, he was in Psychoville in 2011, which, as most people have been in that. We saw him in Miranda. Do you remember him in Miranda? He played Dick Twist in Miranda.
Oh yeah.
You've already mentioned the Are You Being Served remake, but he also has a starring role in W1A. The sort of BBC drama. Did you ever watch that? I've never seen that.
I've only seen bits and pieces of it, but Sarah Parish is also a regular in it.
Sarah Parish is in that, yes,
and Joel Fry is in that for several episodes as well, who we're going to talk about very soon. So yeah, there's a few connections there.
Why don't we go back to our opening scene then?
Yes, well, we've got, Gavin and Julie there. They're kind of doing their usual shtick, and Julie is being kind of very flirtatious, and...
She's gagging for it, Alan.
She is gagging for it, and Gavin
She's
doesn't choking
for it.
Yes. And Julie is played by Jane Horrocks, and presented as a sort of lonely spinster figure. She seems like she is. She's just gagging for it. But not just with anyone. She seems particularly infatuated with Gavin.
Look at us two, stood under this. Anyone passing would think we were getting married.
Yeah, I see what you mean. If anyone here knows of any good reason why these two should not be married, then speak now.
Can you imagine?
No, just stop me if you think I'm mad.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, since it's the millionth customer, what if all the staff said, thanks a million for shopping at Valco?
Oh, Gavin Strong, where do you come up with this stuff?
Oh, it actually came to me in a dream last night.
Even when you're asleep, you're still the best manager in the world.
Oh.
But he's the authority figure in her life, and I don't think we ever dig that deep into her
we get hints, don't we? We get hints that she's so tightly wound, and we get hints that she can completely unravel occasionally.
Yes. Series 2 is where this really happens. Like we say, Gavin goes off to become area manager, and Stephanie Beacham, who's played... Lorraine Chain is the character's name, who she comes in and is just a really unpleasant and kind of no-nonsense northern manager.
For goodness sake, Julie.
I'm sorry, I didn't realise you were busy.
I'm not busy. I'm eating a sausage roll. Do you honestly think that being busy is eating a sausage roll?
She's great. Listen, I know we're not going to talk about Stephanie Beacham in a lot of detail, but she used to be in Dynasty.
Yeah.
I think this might be the first time I've seen her since the Dynasty. And oh god, it's Stephanie Beacham. She's great. I love that character.
It was fun. I tell you what, right? I had a problem with this series 2, and then series 3 we have a character called Richard France, who comes he's like from head office, and he's trying to rebrand the store, and so it's an antagonism between him and the manager Gavin.
He's an ideas cannon.
Oh god, yeah. But the series 2 thing is, there's Stephanie Beacham, the new manager, and the clash with her and Julie. And my problem with both of these storylines is they go for the whole series and they're extremely unpleasant. The Stephanie Beacham abusing Julie to the point where she has a full-on mental breakdown. She has a nervous breakdown and is mentally destroyed. It's too real. It's too unpleasant. It's not funny. And the comedy is not strong enough to pull us away from that. And then with the Richard France storyline in series 3, a similar thing. It was just that was not so much that it's unpleasant, but it was just, this is a one episode bit. Oh, and a guy comes in, the ideas guy comes in, and they clash. One episode, done. A new manager comes in and everyone hates her. Done. Maybe a double bill if you want to kind of drag it out. It's not a 10 episode arc.
There's another one in one of the later series where Rufus Hound is playing like a sales rep for one of the other companies. I hated that character. It just clanged so badly.
Well, actually, I feel the opposite. I think that's a good example.
I'm not on the same page with this.
I think the Rufus Hound character, I really liked Rufus Hound's performance, but I think that was a good way of having that kind of antagonistic character without putting too much weight on it in terms of plot. Because basically he's in every episode for that series.
The reason I thought of him was when you just said that's a one episode character, and that's what I thought about him.
So he represents a particular food brand, and so he's like the guy who comes into the store going, oh, we should merchandise it like this, and he's a knobhead salesman.
Yeah.
I think having that character drop in like 2 episodes a series, and like, oh god, Rufus Hound's here.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of the character. But
Duncan Trench.
Duncan Trench is here, and then Gavin has to put up with him. That would have been nice, but obviously they're just contracting an actor for a series. They brought him in to do that. But I think I quite like that they just did it. They had it for that series. They dealt with it. But I thought that character worked a lot better than, for example, the Richard France character in series 3. But the Stephanie Beacham character was particularly galling to me because it was so unpleasant. And another example, which may be series 2 or 3 as well, the character Neville, who is played by Dominic Coleman. He is brought in. He's supposed to be this really sad, pathetic character.
Absolute loser.
But particularly when he's first brought in, that first series where he's in, he is being physically and emotionally abused by his wife. And it's just unpleasant. It's not funny. And it's
I think it goes
for
too
laughs.
far. It's too cartoonish but not in a funny way. I agree with you. I think that character is, he's supposed to be sad and downtrodden, but it's too much.
And they find their feet with that later on. Him in the later series, it's great. He's just a bit sad, unlucky, and kind of nothing ever goes his way. And it's funny.
But then he ends up going out with one of the customer service women, who is far too good for him, and that is so unbelievable when that happens. Because we've spent 4th series portraying this guy to be a cartoonish loser, it is impossible to take the logical leap that she would like him.
It feels a bit forced, but they do at least play into it that it's just like no one else can quite believe it. She's trying to hide it from everyone because she's ashamed of him. Yeah. And so I think they play it well ut. But it does feel like a soap where it's like, right, what can we do now? This character's already been married twice and their wife died or whatever, so like now we need to hook them up with someone else.
Let's talk about Jane Horrocks, because Jane Horrocks is a massive star. Yes. I'm curious as to why Jane Horrocks is not a bigger star, because in the 90s she was enormous. She was the next big thing. I thought you would have bet in 1996-7 that she was going to be all Hollywood. She was going to be Olivia Colman.
I don't know about that, because as much as I like Jane Horrocks, I think most of her CV was comedy. She was great at impressions and she had voices and all that sort of thing. And she is a great actor. But where does that translate in the Hollywood machine? Where are you if you're a 5'1" with a Rochdale accent, you know.
Funny accent.
Does it translate to like leading lady? Not really. So you're going to be a supporting character. And yeah, why not ply your trade in theatre and British TV?
Well, I mean, she's had a great career. Don't misunderstand me. It's certainly not intended to be a criticism. I just think it's curious that why she went the route she did. And, well, to pick an example, Ralph Fiennes, who she was at RADA with, he went to Hollywood. And, you know, she was a huge star with Little Voice. You know, that was a film that was nominated for Oscars. So the potential was there. And I'm not going to say she didn't she didn't seize it, because I'm not sure that me, as an outsider looking in, really knows how the mechanics of these things work.
I would have been more like, I think we had a similar conversation with Sally Phillips. Like, you would expect her to have been a lead of some major sitcom that was a huge success, you know, like her own kind of Ab Fab vibe show. But yeah, I mean, that's just the way it goes. I don't know. Who knows? There's all sorts of variables in these things, aren't there? And Ralph Fiennes, just to use Ralph Fiennes, for example, maybe he's got the look and the kind of style that works better for an RSC job. You can play the classic Shakespearean roles. Then you're in Schindler's List and suddenly like America knows who you are. You know, it's like that kind of thing. Just the right things drop. You know, there's all sorts.
He was in Strange Days before Schindler's List. I've got a soft spot for Strange Days because it has Juliette Lewis singing 2 PJ Harvey songs. And that's ticking a lot of boxes for me.
Wow, yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, sorry, minor diversion. Let me tell you a bit about Jane Horrocks. So she is, as you may suspect, from Lancashire. And, you know, she was obviously into drama, into acting, but she's got a great voice and she could do these impressions. It was interesting. I was listening to her talk about this and she said she had no confidence at all to stand on stage and sing as herself, but she could do Shirley Bassey as good as, well, probably better than Shirley Bassey could by then. Yeah. So she, as I said, she went to RADA, but she said that she kind of obtusely held on to her accent. They tried to knock that out of her a little bit, and she, you know, was quite stubborn about that, which perhaps speaks to her character. And she did a few bits and bobs in the late 80s. We saw her she was in an episode of Red Dwarf. Do you remember? She went on the Hollow Ship.
Certainly do. A very classic episode. Yeah. And a really significant character in that episode, yeah.
I think the thing that changed her direction was in 1990, she was in a Mike Leigh film, Life is Sweet, which got a great cast. There's Timothy Spall, Jim Broadbent, Alison Steadman in that.
Classic Mike Leigh stuff.
So, you know, she kind of got that credibility, you know, having been in a Mike Leigh film, but that's not going to give you mega stardom, is it? She was in a television play. It was a television adaptation of a play called Road by Jim Cartwright. And in that, when she got to know him and sort of backstage, she was doing her impressions. You know, she was doing her Shirley Bassey and her Marilyn Monroe and all that.
Do you, Tina?
Yeah, exactly. So, but it clearly worked out because he then went away and wrote The Rise and Fall of Little Voice for her. So it was specifically written for her. And that was directed by Sam Mendes, and that was originally produced in 1992.
Yes.
And, you know, she was great. She was a West End success, you know, and won awards, all that. Then when they made it into a film, which was several years later, 1998, she was the only person who could be in that, although they did change the other. So Alison Steadman was replaced by Brenda Blethyn, and Michael Caine came in for Pete Postlethwaite. But again, so that was 1998, and by then she was in her late 20s, but you kind of would have thought that, it feels like that could have been a springboard for more, and it just sort of wasn't, you know. She's gone on to have a great career. She's been in comedy, she's been in dramas, she does lots of voice work, lots of kids' TV. But I don't know, I think maybe I'm being a little unfair. I don't know why I'm placing these great expectations on her.
She's had a great career.
She has had a great career, and I should belt up about it. What about, just before we finish on Jane Horrocks, a couple of sitcoms. How have we not mentioned Absolutely Fabulous? She's in Ab Fab, of course. Yeah,
that's definitely what I think, in terms of sitcom lineage, that's what I would associate her with.
But, you know, she's not one of the stars of that. She's a regular supporting character, but,
yeah.
You know,
and a big addition. But that feels like Jennifer Saunders has gone, look at this talent, let's put her in something, you know. That's feels like not necessarily a character written for her. I don't know the history of that, but like I wouldn't be surprised.
Here's something that she was in that you might remember. Do you remember Crapston Villas?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
yeah, good pull.
That was like an animated. Tell me what it was. It was like an animated series about what probably chavs before they were called chavs.
Yeah, it's stop motion, I guess, and it's based on the kind of some crappy council estate. Yeah, really like grotesque and deliberately not offensive particularly, but, grotesque.
Well, last thing before we move off Jen Horrocks, because I watched this, and I would recommend that you go and have a look at this on YouTube. They made in 1996, built a sketch show around her called Nevermind the Horrocks.
Yeah, just a pilot though, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
But
listen to the talent involved in this. So writers were Punton Dennis, Graham Linehan and Arthur Matthews, Andy Hamilton and John O'Farrell. And also in it, as well as Jane Horrocks, we have Martin Clunes, Rebecca Front, Mel Giedroyc, David Haig and Alexander Armstrong. All the big hitters.
Yeah, of the 1998.
I mean, joking aside, that's a great lineup. And it's all right. Like, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's a bit hit and miss like all sketch comedy is.
But it's kind of built around... Not much sketch comedy is built around one person anymore.
No.
But yeah, the whole point is that she's just got this huge range because she can do all the voices. I remember that, watching that on telly at the time.
Yeah.
That's definitely my era. So let's actually... We sort of barely got stuck into our episode here so far. We are anticipating 1 millionth customer. We have another character there called Leighton, who is dressed as the Valco Tick. So Valco, I don't know if we've actually specified this. Valco is the name of the fictional supermarket they work for.
Valco. With the brilliant strapline, Valco serves you right.
Isn't that fantastic?
I really love that. That's such a good little line.
Yeah, serves you right. It's great. And they do a tick, the Valco tick. The symbol is a tick, and they all do it with their hands, and they always do it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Which is just seems
actually
to be a little...
why don't we take another tangent and talk about the opening titles, which it's our main characters essentially filming an advert for Valco. Valco serves you right, and they're doing this tick with their hand, and no one can do it right.
Just say you're lying. Can't you stop that now?
If you can get it anywhere cheaper, I'll come round and cook it myself.
Red hot deals.
We've got offers on everything from booze to biscuits.
Loads of 2-for-1s.
Service with a smile.
We have fresh produce.
Delivered daily.
Don't forget the Valco tip.
Am I getting paid for this?
I wasn't ready. Valco serves you right.
I think it's a great opening
It's
sequence,
really good.
actually. It establishes all the characters, it establishes the thing. It was very much, I don't know if they do it these days, but of the time where you would put, let's put real people in the adverts. And it's like...
Exactly, yeah. It's a little pastiche of that. This is not an actor, and they've got some bloke from Asda who can't act. And you think, well, maybe use an actor next time.
But yeah, you would have that. It's a butcher going, we've got the best meat. That's it. They cut to someone else.
If you can find it cheaper elsewhere, I'll come round and cook it myself.
Like as we get to know the characters, it's in character, like Mark Addy's character. Yeah. He's obviously, you put him in an advert, he's like, right, I'm going to be the best person you've ever seen.
Yeah.
This is going to break me in Hollywood.
Colin wants to know if he's getting paid for it.
Yeah, the branding of the supermarket is really on point, and they inhabit this supermarket. And like you said earlier, it is their whole world. We very rarely go out of that supermarket. So they had to get this right, and what they did was built a supermarket.
Yeah, so they built an entire supermarket. They got a studio in Bristol, and they built this entire set, which would have cost quite a lot of money. I couldn't find a number, but it must have cost a lot. It's 9,000 square meters.
Wow.
And yeah, they built that there in 2011 and kind of kept reconstructing it every year.
I tell you what, right? I remember watching years and years ago an episode of Top Gear where they did this shtick where they drove their cars through a supermarket and like smash things up, and it's kind of ridiculous. And I didn't think much of it at the time. I guess, you got to pay someone to do that, to let you smash up their supermarket. But I read while I was looking at this that this was the supermarket they used. So obviously, we finished filming, you can go and drive a car through that. But that's interesting. Get the BBC to pay you a bit of money to use it as well.
I heard an interview with Lorraine Cheshire saying that they brought in all the stock. It was real stuff. So they'd have tins of soup in there that were all out of date. But the fruit and veg had to be brought in every day for filming because it had to be, fresh. And so they were allowed to just take home whatever they wanted at the end of the day. This is great. Never had so many apples.
And it is. You never even give a second thought to the fact that this is a supermarket, and that's great production design, really. If you're not questioning it at all, and it's huge. It feels like it's got that capacity. You don't feel like
that size,
you're filming in a little studio that's been made to look like a
We've
shopping
made
art.
comment about this on many occasions where they're trying to they're trying to give the idea of scale, and it's just impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it's expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, and they've done this, and the place is inhabited by customers and other staff, all extras. That's like you're paying all them as well. This is an expensive operation. But also the sort of thing where, like, we've built it now, so let's get at least 3 series out of it. Because you've kind of pot committed by that.
Yeah. One of the things I quite liked about it was, like, in between scenes, there'd be little interstitial bits of film, and it'd just be just customers pushing their trolleys, or someone putting some pineapples down, or just supermarket business, and I think that works really well.
It's interesting that because that's very much an early series thing. They don't do that so much later on, but the early series it is you got someone just squeezing melons or some such just sort of slightly amusing customer business or even staff business. And they do sort of feel away from that. But like I say, that really gives that first series a bit more of that sketch quality. Like there's just these little gags. But it also made me think of The Office, which maybe I'm just doing it automatically because of the Ashatala connection. But The Office used as like little scene breaks. They would just have a little shot of the printer printing out or something like that. They had these kind of little interstitials or you would have a little shot of, the accounting department, who are all characters that we kind of see them, but we don't really get to know them that well. They're just doing some business. And it's just to kind of break up the scenes, give it that sense of the documentary vibe that they were going for. Yeah. Now, this isn't quite doing that, but it reminded me of that in these little scene breaks.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so it's very much not a documentary. It's not a fly on the wall. It's not positioned as that. No. But I said earlier, it feels like we're a fly on the wall watching this thing happen. Right? I tell you what, it's not theatrical. It doesn't feel like a sitcom on a stage to an audience. Obviously, it's not. Yes. But it's definitely got a feeling of this is a working supermarket. We're just watching what happens.
And it will commonly do that thing where it kind of starts off like we go to the meat counter and there's a wide scene, there's a customer passes in front of the camera. So it really makes you feel like I am someone in the shop and I'm just looking over. And then you go in closer for the detail, and there's a lot of handheld stuff.
But if you think about Are You Being Served, which we looked at recently, that feels theatrical. It feels like they're on a shop-shaped stage, whereas here they're in a shop. And I guess the set is part of that.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, if we want to talk about more realism in the show, can we talk about Kieran and Katie?
Okay.
Because Kieran and Katie are the normal characters.
They're the
in terms
real
of
people.
The first series, definitely. They are they're just regular people and they're surrounded by slightly odd supermarket people.
Yeah.
That's a very deliberate choice. It's a very definite thing. It's really obvious setup for the will they won't they between them. Kieran is in a relationship and lives with a woman, so like he's not available, but they obviously really get on, these two. He doesn't get on with his girlfriend in the same way, and it's like, oh my god, I fancy this woman. It's a little bit, not a little bit at all, it is totally Tim and Dawn from The Office.
Yeah.
Kieran is Tim from The Office. I'm too good for this place, but I'm not really going to get away from it.
He's not quite looking to camera when Andy the Butcher's doing all his, saying all his silly lines. He's not quite looking to camera, but he might as well be.
Not a long way off. And Katie is she's going to go off to uni, and I think in series 2, 3 she is a student.
Yeah.
And like this is a very northern working class thing. Oh, she's gone to uni kind of thing.
Yeah.
So she thinks she's better than us. Yeah. But within our world and the story we created, she is better than them, and she knows it. Everybody else knows it. In this episode, the manager, Gavin, comes to her and asks her to be involved in the 1 millionth customer thing because she's the most presentable member of staff, which is not just a physical thing. It's like, I need someone I trust to do the job.
Yeah.
Even though she's good at the job, even though she doesn't want to be. She doesn't want to put the effort in. It's a weekend job for her. She doesn't care. I think I found that very relatable, frankly.
Is this relatable, Alan?
Yeah. I've had my fair share of retail jobs, and it's beneath me. But you know what I mean? It's the sort of job you do when you're 19, 20, and it's not what you want to do as a career. And it's sort of thing like, once you're into management, it's like that's a proper career. But working on the tills, it's a job. And that's what Katie sees it as. This is not something she's going to do for the rest of her life. Just to compare and contrast, Lisa, another character who we'll talk about in more detail. She's a till girl. She never wants to be anything. She doesn't want to do that. And and her mission in life is to do as little work as possible.
Yes.
We'll talk about her later. But it's a very direct contrast between her and Katie, and we see that eat very comfortably. So, Kieran and Katie.
So it's like you say, it's the will they, won't they?
And would you believe it? They will.
Of course.
Who would have seen that coming? But it does feel a bit too obvious. It's a bit too straightforward. Will they, won't they?
I don't know, though. I don't really disagree with you, but I thought it was nice. I thought it was nice. Yeah. And yes, it all feels fairly predictable as you work through the episodes towards their inevitable getting together. But I was pleased when they did. I was great. I sort of metaphorically punched the air because they're nice people and they found each other, and that's great. And not everything has to be really clever.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. And they are likable characters. I think they are very relatable characters in a world of comedy caricatures. They're the ones that I'm like, oh god, yeah, I've worked in that job. I've been in that position. I think that's the whole point. That is very deliberate. The chemistry between them seems nice. They're basically a couple of young people who have a bit of work banter, and everyone knows they fancy each other, but they won't kind of admit it.
One thing I will say is, they eventually get together. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of annoying because it sort of resolves off screen. And then the next series, Katie comes back from uni and she ends up being the assistant manager. Mm-hmm. Kieran never comes back. He's gone off somewhere else. And it feels like, that was nicely tied up with a bow and you've sort of ruined it now.
Yeah, just to jump ahead, they both leave after series 3. And the idea is they've gone to move to Wales, somewhere in Wales, like Stockport or something like that. Like somewhere
it doesn't matter. It could be Altrincham. They're gone.
Outside of Warrington, they may as well be dead. Yeah. But they've gone to try and make a new life. And then Katie comes back, and they've broken up. And I'm all right with that. That's kind of fine. Oh, it didn't work out after all in the end. But then Katie comes back, and they immediately start a will they, won't they with Daniel, who is the assistant manager guy, who has been brought in as the straight man. He is the new kind of I am a normal man in a slightly odd world. But it's just so immediate and so obvious. It's that's when it becomes too much. Like if I'll allow it once, but not twice.
No, I definitely didn't feel the same warmth towards that.
It just felt forced. It felt rehashed. There's a little bit of that as we get into the later series. There is a little bit of rehashing that doesn't inspire me. I think just as a general overall view, this is a really watchable show. It's fairly simple, but it's fun and But is that a non-auteured writer's room thing? Is there a lot of passion behind this, or is it just this is a good plot, write that?
Yeah.
So we have Kieran and Katie. They're two major actors, but they are not playing the comedy roles. So are these guys actors-wise? Are they less known for comedy?
Yeah, that's fair. They're both probably better known for dramatic roles. Let's talk about Chanel Cresswell first. So she plays Katie, and she's from Derbyshire. She's part of the Nottingham Television Workshop, which is quite a well-renowned youth acting group. Yeah. And as part of that youth acting group, she was cast by Shane Meadows in This Is England, which was in 2006, the original film. So she was in that as a 15-year-old, as one of the skinheads. And
she's a relatively small role in that. She's not like one of the main ones, but she's one of the group of friends, isn't she?
But then she was in all the subsequent spin-off series as well, wasn't she?
And that really legitimised her because she won a BAFTA.
She did.
For one of those, because she was like I remember that the character, like she got into drugs and all this, and it was kind of a real that was the episode where she had a real this is your chance, get your teeth stuck into this kind of acting, as opposed to just being a supporting actor.
But I'll tell you something that was interesting. I listened to a couple of interviews with Chanel Cresswell, and she was basically doing those This Is England series after the original film, the series. They were in the same timescale as she was doing Trollied. And obviously, she won a BAFTA for that. So you think, well, that's where the meat is, and Trollied is a kind of, just to pay the bills. But what she said was, Trollied was a much bigger part of her life because it was taking a lot more time. And she said, and I got to work with big names in Trollied, which is fascinating because you think of This Is England as a really credible production. Shane Meadows, Stephen Graham's in it. But I guess there are more actors. Trollied is a bigger deal in the sense of it probably paid better and it was more exposure. So to a young actor, that's what's important.
And the way Shane Meadows works, I suppose a little bit like Mike Lee, so much improvisation and that sort of thing. It's not really what you get in the world of acting. That's not what you get in Trollied. You get a script, you learn it and turn up and do it. So it's a very different vibe and Well, for me as an actor, variety is the spice of life, you know. So it's like you want to do all those different things.
But her career has gone on. She's got a bit of a line in kind of gangster flicks. She played Lenny McLean's wife in a biopic. You know, remember Lenny McLean? He was just like a gangland thug who suddenly became famous. And she, probably the most interesting role she's done recently, she played Colleen Rooney in the televisual adaptation of the Wagatha Christie trial. Which is, obviously I didn't watch that, but that's quite interesting. But if you look at pictures of her, she's done a good job there. She looks just like Colleen Rooney.
And in Trollied, I don't think she's particularly stretched by Trollied. You know, it's a simple part, but it's nicely done. And her character comes back and is recruited into management. And there's a little bit of conflict there between her and previous sort of peers. Now she's an authority figure, and I don't know, it never really comes to much. And then she ends up working for HR or something. But she's there and she's involved. So yeah, that's about.
Just keep her involved in the cast, yeah.
But she does. I do feel like she gets a bit lost later on. To say how much a major part she is of the first few series, they bring her back and then don't do a lot with her. She's just the assistant manager, basically. It's like
I say, it's probably a good gig for her, but the character seems wasted though. I don't know. We need it, you know.
So what about Kieran then?
Nick Blood. What a great name.
Nick Blood.
Crazy name, crazy guy. Not really renowned for comedy, and this is pretty much the only sitcom that he's done. He studied drama at Bristol University, and he went to LAMDA. His first regular role was in a drama about the fashion world called Material Girl. I don't remember that. But then, to be honest, Trollied was like the next thing he was in. There was more than one episode of anything. So, 2011 until 2013, because he only lasted 3 series, he was in Trollied. And then, I guess he wanted to do drama. He was in The Bletchley Circle, which was about Bletchley Park during the war, and a couple of other things. But then, guess what? He went and Brock America.
Brock America? Doing what?
So, well, depending on if there's a crossover here of sitcom fans listening, crossover with comic book hero fans, then they'll be screaming already. He was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was one of the Marvel spin-off series. Yeah. And he was one of the agents. He was like a regular character in that. He was one of the stars. So he did that for 3 years, 2014 to 2017, and kind of made his name in America. And he's been in lots of other things. He was in something called Euphoria with Zendaya, who I believe is in films. He was in the first series of Andor, so he's got Star Wars pedigree. He's currently in Slow Horses, which everyone's raving about. Yeah. He's making a good old living in America, being on the second page of the cast sheet of lots of things. I think he's made himself a career, so he's Brock America.
Fair enough. Okay, let's just jump back into the episode we're looking at. We'll skip to Gavin asks Julie out to dinner.
Yes,
and Julie is extremely excited about this. It's obviously a date. It's very clearly a date. Finally, just out of nowhere, he's decided he wants to take her on a date.
Yeah.
Let's see how that plays out later. But then, basically, we're moving on to the next bit. So, just a quick look at a couple of other smaller characters. We have a little scene, like I say, it's a bit sketchy. There's a little scene here. We have Leighton, played by Joel Fry. He's anticipating the 1 millionth customer. And so he's counting every customer as they arrive in a very silly kind of comedic way. And Ian, who is the security guard.
Ian, the security guard, of course, played by Victor Maguire, one of our firm favourites.
Yes, and he never quite figure out what he's doing here. The character...
He's not a big part of the drama at all. Like, he's in some episodes just in the background. He's in some episodes he has a sort of, a B storyline. But he's never a big part of the drama, really.
No, and this is part of the thing with Trollied, like we were saying, there's so many characters, but as opposed to the David Croft vibe, there's very often a few characters not in an episode, they're just not there, or we'll have a quick, Ian the security guard's in the background, like this is basically, this 30-second scene is what we see of Ian in this episode. Yeah. And he comes over to Leighton and just sort of, in a slightly jokey way, is distracting him from his counting.
Yeah, he's just talking about other numbers.
A little skit, kind of nothingy, fine. But obviously they get, the way this is filmed, you get Victor Maguire in and film all his bits, you can just drop that in on another day, I assume, rather than filming it kind of episodically.
You think so? I'm not sure. I would have thought Victor Maguire's got to be there all the time. I don't think they're like in extras. We've got Samuel L. Jackson for a day. Let's film all his scenes. I don't think Victor Maguire's got that heft.
Yeah, but it's not just a matter of, he's too important. Like, you've got to pay him if he's there.
Fair point. Yeah.
Or you can we can film all your scenes in 4 days.
Yeah.
Or have you hang around for 4 weeks.
But you've got to get Leighton dressed up in the Tick.
Yeah, that takes 20 minutes. It's all right. But yeah, I mean, obviously you plan certain things. But I don't know if this was filmed Actually, I genuinely don't know. Was this filmed episodically? The way the characters are so separated and so separate, like the meat counter is the meat counter. Like, I think you probably could do a lot of that. Can I just use this opportunity to make a mention of a character that comes in Series 7? So Victor Maguire, Ian the security guard, he leaves after Series 6.
Yeah.
And the new security guard, Donna, who's played by Jessica Gunning, comes in.
Jessica Gunning, who's now a massive star.
And in contrast to what we see with Ian, I think they really understand what that character is straight away. They use her quite a lot in Series 7. Never put any real weight on her, like plot-wise, but she's a great comedy character. She fits in the world. And I feel like by Series 7, like, they kind of know what they're doing, and they drop this new character in, and she fits beautifully and is a real great addition to the cast.
Yeah, yeah. Jessica Gunning, of course, Baby Reindeer, has just been winning awards all over the place, yeah.
And I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, but come back next week when we will continue our journey through the supermarket aisles, and we'll be looking a bit closer at Mark Addy and lots of the other actors, as well as having a look at what happened after the first few series when the show changed a little bit. In the meantime, if you would like to get in touch, we are on Instagram at BritcomPod, or you can join the Facebook group, search for British Sitcom History Podcast, you'll find us there. That's all for now. Come back next week for more Trollied. Goodbye.